Hey, good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing? Truly, it's a blessing. It's another blessing, another week, and another episode. So I'm excited again about just the opportunity for this, to keep this thing going and to have a conversation with you all. So uh, I'm excited again. Another great week, another phenomenal topic, and you know, I'm looking forward to you guys tuning in and we having a great open conversation. What I would like to do, like I always do, is as we come in, let a few people. I'm sharing it right now myself for some people to tune in. But I ask that you share, not only share, but let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from, um, and hey, we can get this thing going. But overall, I just want to say, hey, it's great. Another weekend. We got a lot going on, a lot of things going on with different people. Uh, you can't hear me. What about? I hope that you can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Episode. So I can. So just thank you for that, Chandler. I know I can hear it on mine. I hope you can hear me. But just want to welcome some people in tonight. Was having some technical difficulties on some things, but hey, we're gonna still work through that. It's not gonna stop the show at all. Tonight's show, I know it'll be one that is gonna be great for the dialogue, great for the. It's a great conversation. It's a great conversation. So I do want to start off tonight. I know usually I do a shout out to a small business owner, but this week I wanted to dedicate this time to. There's a lot of personal families that I know personally uh, that are going through bereavement right now. They're bereaving their lost loved ones. A lot of people lost loved ones, especially due to COVID. So what I wanted to do is just acknowledge those families and lift you guys up. My thoughts and prayers are out for you. And during this time of bereavement, I do know that the Lord is a comforter, and especially for those who lost very close loved ones, like parents and stuff. I dealt with losing my father back in 2013, so I know the impact that it can have. You guys, I just want to encourage you in the Lord, and just that not only that you guys be encouraged, but that you know that you're not in this thing together, and take the time to go through the process of healing because it's necessary. And don't be on anybody else's timeline for healing. Heal on your own timeline, but make healing a priority. I just wanted to start off. We got some people in here, so I want to see, can we? My daughter said, let me see if we acting up. Okay, now she said she can't hear us. Okay, I can hear you, Chandler. Hopefully you can. Other people said, got my man Daryl Barnett. Hey, what's going on, brother? How you doing? And we got Miss Geraldine Pastor. She's tuning in again. Thank you again. She said present. She can hear me. She's tuning in all the way from the great state of Alabama. For those that don't know, I'm currently in Kansas. I'm in school here in Kansas, in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. So I'm enjoying myself here in the Midwest and getting settled. But tonight, the show tonight is one that I think that was necessary. And as I was in thought about the show or what I was going to talk about, this is something that popped up that I really wanted to open up and express. We got my brother tuning up, my big brother Eric, all the way from Cleveland, Ohio. So this topic that I wanted to talk about is something that I think is very necessary to have an open and honest dialogue about. Why? Because a lot of these things people go through, but they don't have mediums, or there's not content out there that address these in a candid, in an open, in an honest, in a transparent way. And I just wanted to have that conversation. So tonight, I wanted to go from the topic. And so usually I have the topic going down at the bottom, but I'm having technical difficulties. But you know what? That's not going to stop the show. But it's identifying and overcoming the trauma and deep wounds of neglect. Identifying and overcoming the trauma and deep wounds of neglect. We got Miss Valencia Smith. Hey, how you doing? She tuning in from Georgia. I see you rocking your Delta. Delta's in the house. The Divine Nine was going strong this past week. But I want to talk from the subject, like the subject of identifying and overcoming the trauma and deep wounds of neglect. Now, neglect is a subject that a lot of people have dealt with, and they dealt with a lot in silence, but a lot of people have not really been open and honest about the neglect. And neglect is something that that I feel that we all have dealt with in some form in our lives. Hey, Miss Paige Banks, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. But there's something that is necessary for, I feel like, for us to get to a point to where we can move on and we can grow and we can start fulfilling, living our best life, like living an abundant life. One of the things when we start talking about neglect or the trauma that causes neglect is we have to realize that all neglect is not intentional. And I really wanted to bring that up because a lot of times neglect the hurt from the neglect doesn't change, but the intent behind neglect may not have been intentional. And I hope that some people can really understand where I'm coming from. Shout out to my cousin Frederick. Hey, that's the sneakerhead of the family. He's up there in New York and Amityville on Long Island. So thanks for tuning in. We got Laramie tuning in. Hey, thank you guys for tuning in, man. I really appreciate the support and love. But I do want to just jump on this thing about neglect. Now, a lot of us have gone through neglect for whatever reason it is. And I want us to be able to first, we have to be able to be in a position to not only identify that we've dealt with neglect or that we're dealing with neglect. Because some of the times what I feel about when we're talking about neglect is we get into a place to where we'll become so conditioned between operating in the dysfunctions that the neglect may cause that we don't even realize that we have dealt with neglect. And we live our lives a certain way, the best way that we know how, and we don't even realize or even acknowledge, or we become numb to the fact that we have dealt with neglect. And, you know, this is not a sexy topic. This is not a topic that a lot of people really like talking about, but I guarantee you a lot of people go through it. A lot of people go through it. And how do you identify neglect? And I'm not asking people to share their business, but if you dealt with if you have to deal with some things, or if you have dealt with or had to overcome the pains of neglect, you know, just leave a comment, wave your hand, or do something, because I know there's a lot of people that have. And this is not a very sexy topic, because you know what? This is a topic that forces us to deal with ourselves. It forces us to look ourselves in the mirror and actually deal with the reality of you. And that's why I talked about a little bit last week, dealing with the reality of you. And it's kind of like an onward thing going on with talking about that, because neglect plays a major role into how a lot of us are today. So that's why I said, again, we're going to be talking about identifying and overcoming the trauma and deep wounds of neglect. So one of the things that I do wanted to talk about is how do you, when we're talking about neglect in the same sense, what does neglect look like? Like, seriously, what does neglect look like? And a lot of times we look at neglect like somebody is not there for you. Neglect is like, we'll look at it from an extreme neglect. Like we look at neglect of, there's certain parental neglect where parents don't take care of their kids. They don't provide food. They don't provide structure for them. We look at emotional neglect where people just don't give people what they need or what they are desiring from them, especially looking at it from a parental standpoint. We look at neglect also from that absent parent, a parent not being there. We look at neglect from physical abuse. We look at neglect from like sexual abuse. It's all different types of things where you can fall into the category of neglect. And a lot of us have dealt with these things. But just like what I said before, I'm not making an excuse, but some neglect is intentional. There's a lot of neglect that is not intentional. And I wanted to address that because I think that if we have that discussion, it will free a lot of us up from carrying a heavy weight of that neglect on us. So, for example, I do want to just talk, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna use some scripture tonight and go into certain discussions. But one of the discussions I wanted to talk about is an example of a neglect in the form of not intentional. I made on one of the shows I talked about a few weeks ago. I had discuss about me seeing a meme, and in the meme it said that basically the meme said that when we were kids, we didn't realize we was watching our parents grow up as we grew up. And that was a very powerful statement, because a lot of times, especially as parents, you know, we are doing the best, or some parents are doing the best that they know how to do, or they best that they know what they do, or they're making the best decision based off the circumstances they're in. That always does not translate to the right outcome when it comes to your relationship with your children. Now, and I do want to address that, because sometimes you can be doing the right thing based off where you're at that stage in your life, but the outcome may not be what you probably thought it would be for your children or for those that are close to you. For example, I wanted to just jump on some things. There are some people that maybe didn't raise their own children, because that wasn't the best decision for their children at that point in their lives. But what that did was it created a void that a lot of people had to deal with, or a negative impact on the people, and created a void on them because of the feeling of neglect, from that situation. Now, this is not an exhaustive one. Hey, Cassandra, how you doing? But this is the reality of what a lot of us go through. The other thing, part of neglect, and what I was talking about neglect in the sense of, hold on, Miss. She said, please touch on spiritual and self-neglect. Oh, I definitely will. And one of the things that one of the things I do want to talk about and address, and Miss Valencia said a very powerful statement. What I wanted to talk about in the aspect of neglect is, I can use myself, and I'm gonna be transparent with this. I grew up in a 2-parent home. I grew up with a mother and a father. Both of my parents was college educated. Both of my parents was college educated. Both of my parents were very loving, very supportive. I grew up in a very, very loving environment. I was blessed to grow up in a home, in an environment that I grew up in. But that still didn't take away from the fact that I dealt with neglect, even in that when you look from the outside looking in, it looks like a perfect situation. Now, my neglect wasn't intentional. My neglect was unintentional. And I wanted to go in and talk about that. My neglect came from, I had an idea of what I wanted from my father in my relationship with my dad that I didn't get from my father. I didn't go without it because I got it from my grandfather and my uncles, but I had an ideal of what I wanted to get from my father. Now, I wanted to put this out there, that what I was expecting to get from my father, I couldn't get from my father because my father didn't have the ability to give it to me. So, for example, for those that know my father, I wanted the daddy that was going to be throwing the football with me, shooting basketball with me, playing sports with me. Those that know Reverend Robert Shepherd, they know that I wasn't getting a lick of none of that from him. He just didn't have the ability. But that still didn't take away from the right of me wanting to get that. And a lot of people be like, oh man, what you talking about? I dealt with this, that, and the third. Yeah, but that still doesn't take away from the fact of what I desired in my heart and what that caused in my heart. And there's some other things where, as parents or people, we can be doing in our minds, doing the right thing, and we can have a negative impact on those that are around us and create an environment where we're neglecting those around us. For example, you can grow up working in the church. You can grow up doing a lot of things for the community and helping a whole bunch of other people. But are you truly giving everything you need to do? Is it balanced in your home for your kids? Is it balanced in your home for your spouse? And that can create environments where you are neglecting, but the neglect is not intentional. The neglect is a byproduct of you're working out of, or you're operating out of imbalance. So that's something that I wanted to talk about, that aspect of neglect. From you have intentional neglect and you have unintentional neglect, but that still doesn't take away from the fact of the impact of that neglect. And I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from and what I'm talking about. Now, what I want to get into, the other thing with neglect is there's some willful and woeful neglect. There's some people that are just selfish, that are out there for themselves, that put other people, will use people, manipulate people, and they neglect the responsibilities to their families. They neglect their roles. They neglect their obligations. A lot of parents neglect their kids because they don't put them in the right priority. You put your job over your kids, or you put your friends over your family. You put other endeavors over those that are really important to you, and it causes a neglect or a void on the inside. And a lot of us, we don't deal with that very well. We get numb to it while we're dealing with the neglect, but what we end up doing is subconsciously, and from a psychological standpoint, a lot of us begin to find ways to, in a sense, cope with that or fill that void. And it manifests itself in so many different ways. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about is, first of all, we have to identify that we are at a place where we're dealing with neglect. And I would tell you, one of the places where we know, one of the best signs, well, not best signs, but one of the most common signs to know that you're dealing with neglect and you're trapped in the perpetual cycle of neglect is you're always, you have a victim mentality. You begin to develop a victim mentality. And what I mean by developing a victim mentality, you begin to develop the mindset to where you develop a mindset where you're looking for others to do things for you that you have the ability to do for yourself. But you can't see yourself doing it because you feel as if you're the victim. And that's the victim mentality. What do I mean by the victim mentality? Well, when I say the victim mentality, one of the things that I'm speaking on with the victim mentality is I like to use John, the 5th chapter, when it talks about the man that was at the pool of Bethesda. And if you look in John, the 5th chapter, this is what I like. In John 5:5-8, and just listen to this. It says that one who was there, this was talking about the man that was at the pool of Bethesda, and he was there for 38 years, and he was looking for, every day the angel of the Lord came down to the pool, and when the angel of the Lord came down to the pool, those who got in were able to get healed. Now, for 38 years, this same guy was at the pool, at the right place at the right time with the wrong mentality. And I talked about that before, but he had a victim mentality to where he couldn't realize that he already had the ability and had the things on the inside of him to be able to overcome that. But he had to get to a place to where he had an encounter with God, and God asked him a specific question that got him to recognize that he was dealing with victim mentality. And it said one who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. And I'm reading from the NIV version. He said, when Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him. Now watch this. Listen to this is what I really like about the scriptures. And when you read and study the scriptures, things that popped out. It says that first it identified that he had been there for 38 years. Then it goes on and it said, when Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in the condition for a long time, he asked him, do you want to get well? And other versions said, will thou be made whole? Do you want to be made whole? Sir, the invalid said, the man said, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. Then Jesus said to him, get up, pick up your mat, pick up your bed, and walk. Now, watch this. The guy was at the right place at the right time with the wrong mentality because he was looking for somebody else to do a lot of things to fill that void in him or to help him deal with something that he had the ability to deal with himself. Now, I want to go into that because that goes into a little deeper thing from a psychological standpoint, and I want to make this thing plain. I really want to make this thing plain so we can understand where I'm coming from. See, many times when we have been wounded by neglect, See, we look to others to fill the void or to cover the pain of that neglect. I'm gonna say that again. Many times when we've been wounded by neglect, we look to others to fill that void or cover the pain of that neglect. Now we go back and I look at that scripture, and this is not this right here is not a sermon or anything. This is just looking at scriptures and having a conversation. Why? Because think about it. There's a lot of what I like about what this scripture talks about is Jesus saw him and learned that he was in that condition. The Bible didn't say that Jesus laid his hand on him. The Bible didn't say that Jesus poured oil on him. The Bible didn't say that Jesus had his man to get him and put him in the pool. The Bible just asked, the Bible points out that Jesus asked the man a question. Do you want to be made whole? Do you want to be well? And that's what I want. That's what I was talking about earlier with the victim mindset. A lot of us, we identify by our wounds and we want to wallow in that because we begin to identify that. And that's why I love in that scripture when it talks about when he said, take up your bed. That's significant of your bed is where you lay your head at. Your bed is where you dwelled. Your bed is where you rest at. Your bed is where you are at. And by you being where you at, that's where you are identified by. Take up your bed. Take up your excuses. Take up all the excuses of why you're talking about it. And I'm not negating the impact of the neglect, but I'm talking about you being a victim. Transition your mind from being a victim to being victorious in the situation. And that's why I said too, we begin to look for others to cover that wound. We begin to look for others to cover that wound. Now, this is what I also want to say. When we suffer from neglect, we can deplete ourselves by overcompensating to meet the needs of others to fill the void of our neglect. Now, think about that. A lot of people, and I made a post, I made a post on my page, I think it was yesterday. A lot of people go from relationship to relationship and never take the time to deal with themselves because they're looking for somebody else to fill that void from the neglect or from the trauma or from the deep wounds of their past. And what they end up doing is they go in with a victim's mentality. And what they also do is they look for the other person to fill a void that they cannot fill. That's why I said when we have suffered from neglect, we can deplete ourselves by overcompensating by to meet the needs of others to fill the void from that neglect. What I mean by that can be, listen, that thing can be in so many different ways. And I'm gonna be transparent tonight, and I'm going down. I'm gonna be transparent. I'm gonna break this thing down so we can understand how deep this thing goes. We can overcompensate to meet the needs of others, hoping that we will be healed or they will fill that void. And that can come in different ways. We can go from relationship to relationship, and we can go from relationship to relationship to where we can be very caring. And we can be very caring for somebody. Hopefully they can understand and identify and recognize that we've been wounded, and they can pour into that and they can cover and they can heal. Or in my case, my overcompensation was from a sexual nature. So in my mind, and I'm just breaking this thing down, in my mind, if I go from relationship to relationship and I am physically pleasing somebody else, then what that would do is that will fill that void on the inside of me. And it never did. It didn't matter how much I did or what state of where I thought I was compensating at. It never filled that void on the inside of me. And it only left me more and more empty. Y'all see how this thing go? And I went from, and it can go from you going from relationship to relationship, and you feel like you got to buy somebody something. You feel like you got to overgive and give somebody something, and you always angry, and it's always the other person, why they can't do this, and why they ain't do this, and why they ain't do that. And this is where it leads to my other point. It says you will find yourself looking for others to fill a void in your heart from the trauma, but you tend to have unrealistic expectations from your significant others to compensate for your void. You have unrealistic expectations to have others to compensate for your void. What do I mean by that? So when we so let's break this thing down. Let's get deep in this thing, right? Let's get real deep in this thing. So we go from relationship to relationship, and in the relationship, it's always the other person's fault, and they hit all of your triggers. Boom, trigger, 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 and they always the one that you blame for your issues, but your issues really dwell with you. And you have unrealistic, nothing they can do can be good enough. They can do 99 things out of 100. And if they that one time they don't do the way that you want it, then you treat them as if they did something 99 times wrong and only did something right once. You have you begin to develop unrealistic expectations, and that causes strain on your relationships. Listen, boo, you can be the most beautiful girl in the world. You can be the most well put together man, have all the money in the world. But if you don't deal with these issues from neglect of your past, you will become one that is so depleting to deal with that people will avoid you like the plague. That's why it's so imperative that we identify these things before we can even overcome these things. See, and this is why I really like having these conversations, because think about it, right? We all have dealt with this in some form of fashion. It may not have always been the same, but we've all dealt with some form of where we are operating at a deficit based off things that happen. And we got to get to we got to get y'all made me laugh, Portia and Miss Belated. We got to get to a point to where we're honest with ourselves so that we can be made whole. We can be made whole. And if we go, and one of the things like I really love about that, and you go into John, so that was the 5th chapter when Jesus asked the man he'd be made whole. What I like about and this is my mom, she said, but my past is my past. I don't have to deal with it because it's behind me. Yes, you do, Mom. You have to deal with your past. I don't say you have to dwell in your past, but you have to deal with your past. Because if you don't deal with your past will perpetually become your present and impact your future. I will say that again. You don't have to you have to deal with your past. You don't have to dwell with your past, because if you don't deal with your past will become your present, and your present will impact your future. See, the question boils down to, do you want to be made whole? Or are you so familiar, or are you so comfortable with identifying with the dysfunction of your trauma? My niece just hit something. She said, growing up without healing only lead to life circles. Whew. That thing is deep, Megan. That thing right there is deep. Growing up without healing only leads to life circles. Listen, and I was going to talk about this later, but I think it's time to talk about it and address it now. I was talking to my mother last night, and Megan, I'm about to speak directly to what you just posted. You said growing up in circles, growing up without healing only leads to life circles. I would say many people are suffering from their wounds of the trauma because of the lack of reconciliation of the root of their trauma. The lack of reconciliation of the root of their trauma. See, and what do I mean by that? The lack of reconciliation from the root of your trauma. In my situation with my father, my root of my issue was my father wasn't there the way that I wanted him to be there. And I felt that he didn't maximize the time that he could to be with us and spend quality time with us, because he was involved with working in the community, helping a lot of other people. The thing that I love about this is God allowed that thing to be reconciled. he allowed an opportunity for it to be reconciled because my father acknowledged the fact that he missed the opportunity when I was getting ready to graduate. And there was one point where my mother shared with me that he wept because he was like, my son is gone. But God allowed the chance to where he have a second chance with my niece and my son, and he maximized the second opportunity. But me and my father was able to reconcile because we was able to have conversations, and I was able to gain understanding of, okay, a lot of things that I perceived as was wrong. And that's why I was talking about, I thought it was intentional. It wasn't intentional. And I began to get an understanding, and I began to see that my father was human too as I got older. So we was able to reconcile, and that would help me on dealing with the things of my past. Now watch this. Watch this. My brother just said this. He said, but sometimes you never heal. You just accept what it is. Now, I do want to bring this up, and I want to address this from a different perspective on that, because I do believe you heal now. And I want to address these things, because just because I acknowledge it, and just because I can acknowledge it, I can deal with it, I can process it, that doesn't mean that it will forever go away, that I don't have to manage it. Because I've always had to manage my triggers, even though I was able to acknowledge what a root cause of it is. So I had to put things into place in my own personal life to manage my triggers so that I won't go back to those things that try to fill that void, because it's a natural thing. So I do want to speak to that yeah, sometimes you may not feel like you heal, but you got to realize healing is a process. Forgiveness is a process, and it's not going to happen overnight. But if we make the point to start moving towards that, then I strongly believe that it will be necessary. It's not only necessary, but it will lead you on a path to where you can fully heal and not be wounded by it. So, for example, we grow up and we play, and we got a lot of different things. So I got on this side. So I don't know if you probably can see it. Nope. I got a big old scar right here. And I cut myself. And I got this scar working with Mr. Johnson on the free lunch truck back when I was 13 years old. I got that scar there. I remember when I got it cut. I was jumping on the back of that. For those that know the free lunch truck, jumping on the back of that old truck, getting them sandwiches out in the milks, sandwich milks, and them freeze pops. Y'all know everybody love them freeze pops, them triangle ones. Yeah, y'all know what I'm talking about. Was jumping on the back of that truck. I still remember that. That was 28 years ago. I have the scar to remind me of when that happened, but it doesn't hurt when I touch that area. And that's the same point that I'm talking about with my brother. Like you get to the point where you heal, that wound's still gonna remind you, but when you say never heal and accept it, that's a choice to choose, because it may be too painful. But my prayer is that we can get to a point to where you can be able to process it and move on. Miss Paige Banks, she said I know from experience that if you don't deal with it, it only makes you hateful and cause you to mistreat others around you because of your neglect. Listen, if you don't deal with that neglect, you're going to become what you hated. Because of out of that neglect, out of that wound, you will lead to you neglecting those close around you. And that's how generational curses come in, generational curses set in, because it becomes a pattern. It becomes a pattern. And that's why it's so imperative that we identify those things and have open conversations. Listen, one of the biggest things that I see, that we don't even talk about this stuff as families. We don't talk about the things that we went through. We don't have these conversations, and we leave everybody just out there just trying to figure it out, when only thing it could have been is, hey, a conversation that would keep people from going down years and years and years of making bad decisions, because they're operating not in understanding compared to operating in understanding. She said, you may cross your mind from time to time. This is Valencia. She said, you may cross your mind from time to time, but the pain doesn't consume you anymore. That is true. You're able to manage it, and it get to a point to be able to manage. For example, for those that have lost loved ones, I I have processed the grief of my father. My dad died in 2013. So it's been, this year will be 8 years in which my father has been dead. What I still have my moments when I think about my father, and sometimes I shed a tear too, but I am not grieving to the point to where it is pulling at my heart because I was able to process it. But that is so true. My niece said, break the silence to break the generational curses. Yes. Listen, just like what I said in that meme is, children, we realize that we was watching, when we get older, we realize that we was watching our parents grow up as we grow up. I think as parents, it is imperative for us to have those real conversations with our kids of, hey, why of certain things. One of the biggest things that I see, and I see it happen so much, is I see how people, listen, when you grow up in a very neglectful environment, or growing up dealing with neglect, and you develop a victim mentality, what happens is you kind of build a barrier around yourself in a sense to protect yourself. But what you do is you isolate yourself, and you expose your kids to so much more. And your kids saw the real you, but then they have to go out in the world and figure it out for themselves. But you never talked about why you was in that place in the first place. And it's okay to say, hey, at that point in my life, I almost had a nervous breakdown. I didn't know what to do. I used to go in my room and cry every night. I was depressed. I was dealing with anxiety. I was doing my best. Like, seriously, I was doing my best. I apologize for neglecting you. I apologize for not being at your games when I could have been at your games. I apologize for not making time for you. I apologize for all of these things, because during that time, it's no excuse, but I'm letting you know, during that time, this is what I was dealing with. You don't know what that would do for your kids, especially those who have grew up seeing, and they're dealing with the same things in silence. That's why I had my show that I was like, you're suffering in silence in the plain sight of others. And we got to stop that and just start having conversations. We got to start having conversations, because guess what? You may not think it, but your kids know everything that you've been going through. They know, and it's okay to have those conversations. It really is a must, for not only for you, but also for them and your children's children. My mother said, to want to be made whole, you must become vulnerable. You must admit to others that you are in need of help. And my aunt had she had posted earlier, she said, that's the question. Do you want to be made whole? And that goes down. You got to want to be made whole. You have to want to be made whole. And it gets to a point to where a lot of us, when we say, you got to get tired of being sick and tired. Well, a lot of times we aren't really tired. We're just frustrated. And we begin to create these environments where it will become comfortable with operating in them. And we know for a fact that ain't how we want to operate, but that's the reputation, or that's how we done built up our persona, or that's how we want people to look at us as, and we feel like we got to keep that thing going, but we empty on the inside. And being made whole is saying, it's time for me to deal with that. It's time for me to face it. It's time for me to acknowledge it. And running only makes it worse. Cassandra said, the desire to avoid pain often stems from the underlying lack of trust in self and in others. Yes. So I will tell you this, and this is one thing that really helped me with that, as far as with avoiding pain, is the fact that a lot of trauma is caused because people avoiding pain, and because they're avoiding pain, it causes pains for others because they're avoiding that pain. And I hope that makes sense. But if I try to avoid pain, it's going to have an impact on those around me. And by me avoiding the pain and not being made whole, that's going to cause more trauma for those that are close to me. And most of the time is my kids, because we grow up in dysfunction. And I keep talking about dysfunction, but I'm not everybody. Look, we all got some levels of dysfunction. I'm not. That's not what I'm. That is. That's not what I'm trying to act like one is better than. We all got levels of dysfunction. What I'm talking about is being able to operate at a place from a place of mental and spiritual health to where we are able to process things in a manner to where it's beneficial and healthy for us to have positive and enduring relationships with other people. Because a lot of our relationships are toxic in nature because we're wounded and we're so guarded. We want to keep everybody from around us, and we don't want to be vulnerable to nobody. We're married people that we don't want to be vulnerable to and wonder why it don't work. It's because we're fighting everything and we don't make ourselves vulnerable. And listen, and we're getting to a place where we have control issues. We want to control, we want to manipulate, we want to control everything around us. Everybody got to be exactly how we want it before we'll be even willing to give anything. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy. Your kids, those that are close to you, need you more than anything. And I would tell you, a lot of us as parents, those my age and those older, we grew up in environments to where, just shut up and do what I say. And we weren't ever taught how to process our feelings, how to articulate how we feel, how to manage our emotions. And that has destroyed a lot of us. And that's why a lot of us and our kids can't have, in a lot of ways, healthy relationships because of that. Because of those things that we've learned through observation and through hearing and not having those examples. That's why it is imperative that we have those conversations. We sit down and we talk. Now, how do you overcome it? How do you overcome it? Valencia said, not just in your personal relationship, but in our professional relationship. It impacts everyone and everything around us. That is so true. That's why you can't keep no job. That's why nobody want to work with you. That's why you don't have a good reputation. That's why, and I'm finna be as honest as possible. That's why a lot of folks, especially for those of us that claim that we're church folks, that's why people don't want to have nothing to deal with the church, because we don't be honest and open and honest about things that we deal with. And we sit around and you know how you feel. Oh, I'm blessed and highly favored. And I'm blessed and highly favored. The Lord do shanana. We do all of that, but then they see us operating in dysfunction. And that's something that we have to deal with. Cassandra said lack of confidence when you've been judged or criticized for expressing your emotion. One tends to hide emotions to prevent further criticism. Now, I do want to address that because that is so true. But I think that a lot of times we have, I think when it talks about communication, and I think one of the hardest things in communication is there's a tendency to feel that the goal of communication is to get somebody to agree with you instead of understand you. And we aren't taught in our homes, especially, and I'm speaking from the Black community, a lot of us aren't taught how to have discourse without it being confrontational. So we look at confrontational as something being confronted as always negative in nature. So, for example, if I be candid with you, if I be honest with you, I'm not attacking you. There are those that do attack, and I'm not taking away from that. But if I say I don't like that, or if I say I don't agree, I'm not dismissing what you're talking about. I just don't like it, and I just don't agree. And then we have to get to a point that we are mature enough to separate from when somebody is attacking us and somebody being candid with us. And there is a difference. There is a difference. But it's hard to see the difference if in your mind you got the boogeyman out there, and then the boogeyman is always going to look at it from a place that somebody is attacking you. But if somebody is opening up to you, if somebody is being vulnerable to you, it is your obligation to protect and respect that. And when you don't do that, then that's when it breeds the people, it calls them not to trust and not to open up. But that's a whole nother subject. And even with that one, a lot of times that trust and open up, that really goes down to some things we just don't want to be open and honest about because we haven't forgiven ourselves. And that's something that we have to do. My mom said, having God's favor don't really look like favor. Yeah. I guess that was to the comment I was talking about. We was at, being blessed and highly favored of the Lord. But, this is a subject that I really wanted to talk about. And one of the things that's really identifying, what are you doing? Like, Felicia said, sometimes honesty is needed. Just the wording needs to be in the form of non-attacking. That is true. That is true. So, and also too, I like to say this too, is there's two sides always when you're talking about communication. Sometimes how you say something take away from what is being said. But sometimes if you already oversensitive about and you perceiving somebody to attack you, it doesn't matter what they tell you, you'll perceive it as an attack. Even if they coat it with ice cream and put sprinkles on it, you'll feel like they're trying to slam it in your face. So it's two sides to that place where you both parties have to come with a neutral mindset and with the goal to gain an understanding, not to get somebody to agree with them. But this is a topic that is very necessary for you to have, not only with yourself, to be able to identify what are my triggers? What are some of the deep wounds that I'm dealing with? What I mean by what are some of the deep wounds, what are some of those things that I'm dealing with that impact me a lot emotionally that I never talk about? That I'm dealing with the deep wounds of neglect because I feel like my mother didn't love me like she loved my siblings. I'm dealing with the deep wounds of neglect because I feel like my dad wasn't there because he hated me. And I want to address that too, because a lot of times we may have had absent parents for a lot of different reasons, but don't allow one side. Don't make your conclusion based off only one side of the story. That's all I want to say about that. Now, I'm going to say a little bit more, but sometimes the reason why you probably had an absent parent is because the other parent was just too darn hard to deal with. That's not an excuse for them not being there, but I'm just telling, that's a reality. Somehow people crazy and we want to blame them. Oh, they ain't never tried. Oh, they tried, but it always had to be about you. You always wanted to be filled with drama and all these things. And we got to address those things and be able to have those conversations because we raise people up and they think one way and they look at somebody another way. And then when they get older, they finally have those conversations and then they'll be like, wow. So that's why it's imperative, man. It is so imperative. This is not a doom and gloom thing. This is a reality thing. And I think that a lot of us aren't really living our best life because we don't take the time to heal. Listen, this is how you know you have a victim mindset. This is how some of the ways you know you have a victim mindset. It's always somebody else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. No matter whatever, it's somebody else's fault. You minimize what you do and you overvalue what you think you bring. For example, and I made a post the other day, a lot of people overvalue what they bring to relationship to their job. And I like that the Army just released like a promotion list of those who got selected for command. And a lot of people are upset, but a lot of people get upset because they don't really understand fully where they actually stand. And I think that a lot of us avoid that because we don't want to acknowledge and deal with the reality behind the things that we don't do. What role and then how you can deal with those that are victim mentality. Listen, just like that man at the pool, they identify by the infirmaries, and they always look for somebody to help them do work that they can do for themselves. Listen, it is definitely refreshing and also a blessing to have somebody there to help you get better, to help you overcome these things. But ultimately, your healing is your responsibility. And we can't put that responsibility on somebody else because it's not theirs. If they choose to help, then that's their choice to help, but it's not their responsibility. So I just wanted to say that. And I really enjoyed the dialogue today. My mother says, it's always somebody else's fault. I don't know why they keep messing with me. I'm always the victim. That's why Jesus asked him, when he learned that he was there for that long, 38 years. Y'all think about that. And I love it. I like when you sit down and think about 38 years. I'm 41. That's all but 3 years of my life where the guy was going to the place waiting on somebody else to put him into the pool. And watch this, for 38 years, he stated that somebody always got ahead of him. For 38 years. Now, what's so funny to me with that story, when I read that story and I think, is how he get to the pool every day for 38 years. That's a whole nother question. But what I am speaking about right now is, what are we doing? Are we going to stay there and wallow in the bed? Or are we going to take up our bed and walk? Are we going to make the decision to be made whole? Are we going to start finally addressing those things to get us to a place to where we are better? And also, for those who have caused neglect to others, we have to be willing to own it, despite what it may have been, despite if it was intentional or unintentional. We have to be able to put our big boy and big girl drawers on and say, you know what? That was my fault. I apologize for that. I'm sorry. I neglected you. I made a bad decision. I did that. Not, well, it was the best thing for you. No, you own it. You own it. It may have been the best thing, but that just because, like I said before, just because something may have been the best thing at that moment, that doesn't mean that it didn't cause a wound or neglect, a feeling of neglect from somebody else. So we have to own it, especially those who may have caused the drama. We got to be willing to have those conversations, and have those conversations with your kids. Listen, talk to your kids about the things you've been through. Talk to them where your mind was at a certain point. And I will tell you what that does is that let your kids know that you're human. Because a lot of kids, and I can speak from personal experience, thank God I was able to call my dad and run some things off of him. But there's a lot of times your kids feel like they're the only ones going through some stuff, and you went through the exact same thing, but you never open up to them to let them know that you've been through some stuff. And they feel like they're just the only ones dealing with it. But you can let them know that, hey, I've been through this, or this is what my mindset was. This is what I was thinking. This is what I was dealing with. My apologies for whatever I may cause you. Yes, Cassandra, she said you can't minimize others' feelings. You can't, and don't do that. That's why I say own it. Own it. You may have done it. Own it first and then have that conversation, because when you own it, it makes healing a whole lot easier. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in, very much so tuning in. We worked through our technical difficulties. I'll let these people know that they need to step their game up. But oh my God. Yes. Valencia just said, she said, because we don't have the conversations, we'll create our own stories in our head and draw on our own conclusions. That is so true. That's what leads to a lot of additional trauma, because we operate off assumptions instead of operating off of what the fact and the realities are. One of the things that God has been dealing with me with is, Robert, stop running from stuff and deal with it. Stop running from stuff and deal with it. And as I stop running from things, certain things, and deal with it, what I realize is, man, I wasted so much time running that only thing I had to do was deal with it, and it would have been over with a long time ago. And what I was afraid of is It's not so much that I was afraid to deal with it. I didn't want to change my behavior. And that was me. I didn't want to change my behavior, so I kept doing what I was doing and playing the victim because I didn't want to change my behavior. But you got to get to the point to where you got to deal with you. You got to want to change. You got to want to be better. You got to want to do better, and you got to want to put forth the work to get better. You just can't want to. Want to by itself won't get you to where you need to. Want to by itself without action won't get you to where you need to. Want to with no action is just want to. And then you'll be in the shoulda, coulda crowd talking about what you shoulda, coulda have done, watching everybody else who put action to it is talking about what they did do. So make that decision. Be better. Choose to heal. Choose to deal with your trauma. It ain't going to be easy, but a lot of us know what we've gone through. We know some stuff. And listen, and the biggest thing is, if you don't deal with it, man, that thing will negatively impact how you interact with your kids and those closest around you. And you think that everybody else is the problem, and the problem is you, because you never dealt with it. And you're developing your mind, put in your mind, well, it didn't kill you, so you good. No, you dysfunctional, and you need help, and you need to deal with that thing. You need to deal with that thing because we are hurting too many people by doing it. So I thank you guys for tuning in. Really, really do thank you for tuning in. Thank you guys for your continued support. Like I said before, please tune in. These are my platforms on Facebook. You have The Conversation. I'm on Twitter, the Conversation 98. I'm on Instagram, The Conversation 98. Also on YouTube, The Conversation 98. So please check me out on there. All of those. Next week, I will have some special guests. I'll be having some very special guests next week. I'm gonna say who it is in a minute, but I'm gonna get some more comments. Cassandra said we have to admit, deal, heal, or remain dysfunctional. That is so good. That is so good. Admit, deal, heal, or remain dysfunctional. And while we remain dysfunctional, that's a perpetual cycle. That's a perpetual cycle. And Adam, man, thanks for tuning in, brother. He said, take it one day at a time as well. Change is a consistent thing in life, and it always reflects us in our character. That is so true. So next week, it'll be I have some special guests, and I want to talk about a little bit different subject. And then also I got some things brewing up for February with Black History Month. I want to have some real open and honest conversations to kind of bridge the gap on some things. But I will be having my crazy sister, Portia. She'll be tuning in next week. And I have a special guest too, Amanda Clayton, streaming professional, non-commissioned officer I work with at Fort Gordon. And we're going to talk about the impacts of sexual assault. And I want to address that one, have it open. I have an open and honest conversation. I have it from the military perspective, and then also from the civilian side with my sister. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll be having that flyer out soon. It'll be next Saturday at 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central. And thank you guys for your continued support. And you guys have a great night, and God bless.